Carlsbad Caverns are enormous, until, that is, you feel the walls start closing in on you.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast where people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. My name is Hilarie, and I am here with my claustrophobic husband, who has bravely made his way into caves and very small elevators with me.
I probably dislike the small elevators more than anything.
Yeah.
But what do you think the smallest elevator we've been in?
Oh, that's a great
Luxembourg?
question. Luxembourg.
Yeah, I feel like that one,
small.
we basically had to hug to get into that elevator together.
But in Lyon, France, there was one.
Oh, I wouldn't take that one.
You wouldn't even take it. It was so small, only one of us could take it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I took it.
Yeah, it was like a coffin.
It was really small.
Oh.
And like even with a backpack on, it was like, oh, I don't even know if there's enough room for me. That's wild. Okay, well, in this episode, guys, we travel to Carlsbad Caverns for the first time. Now, this episode is number 2 in our new season, Middle of Nowhere. And it just dawned on me whenever I was scripting this that Middle of Nowhere is also the title of my favorite Hanson album.
Oh, gosh. I didn't know there was a Hanson album by that name.
Middle of Nowhere. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, we might have to change the name of this season.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da.
When I tell you that Hillary and I got together in 2007, she owned a disturbing number of Hanson posters in 2007.
Actually, was it 2007?
Yeah, it was. You owned so many Hanson posters.
That's true, but they weren't exactly hanging on my walls.
Still in your possession.
They were in my possession, but I didn't remember they were in my possession. Technically. We'll tell everybody the story.
No, I was helping you move as the dutiful boyfriend that I was. And
We're a very good boyfriend.
And I told you, I was like, hey, I've started a pile of things that I think that maybe you would want to go through and see whether or not you need to keep them. And you were like, oh, where? And I was like, all of this. All of the stuff that you have right here, all of it. And you're like, oh, I need all of this stuff. So I just randomly...
Guys, I'm living in a studio apartment. It's so tiny. It's like, it takes nothing to move me out of here because there's nothing in it.
So much stuff. And you needed all of it. Oh, I have to have all of it. So I said, well, what about this? And I pick up a tube and I open the tube and pour out the contents of the tube. It is legit 10 Hanson posters, at least really 10 funny. Hanson posters.
The timing was impeccable.
I was like, you don't need this. You do not need this.
Oh, I never lived that down. And then after that, the ironic thing is that we were moving to Tulsa. Like, you had already lived in Tulsa, and I was in the process of moving to Tulsa in that moment. And that's where Hanson lives.
That doesn't make it better.
Oh, that's really funny. Okay, well, back to
reality.
Carlsbad Caverns.
In 3, 2, 1. So we are starting 2025 off with sort of a new release schedule. So you're finding us on a different day. We've moved from Tuesdays to Sundays. Hopefully that's working out for you so far. It's going to keep going. We realized that we watch a lot of YouTube on Sundays.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping that maybe you watch a lot of our YouTube on Sundays. So you can go check out some previous videos that we have. Maybe binge watch us a little bit.
Yeah.
Like and comment if you feel like it. Do us a little favor. Little pat on the back wouldn't hurt.
A little pat on the back wouldn't hurt. Comments really make us feel good. You could do that.
Most people's comments are like, you're wrong.
That's true.
This is misinformation, which sometimes those people were correct.
We're very convincing liars, so people don't always know.
Tell us on a scale of 1 to 10 how many Hanson posters you need.
Oh, back to Carlsbad Caverns. Okay. So in this episode, we're going to tell you a little bit about Carlsbad Caverns. While we were there, we learned that it is one of over 300 limestone caves of fossil reef laid down by an inland sea 250 to 280 million years ago. Now that probably just sounds like jargon, so we're gonna get into that and make it sound like a little bit more sense. But in 1898, a 16-year-old boy, a Texas-born cowhand named Jim White, he entered the caves for perhaps the first time and found the entrance there. Granted, this is not necessarily the first time the caves were technically seen by humans because, come to find out, they don't always get credit, but American Indians lived in the Guadalupe Mountains within the park 12 to 14,000 years ago. And then, isn't that crazy? And then Jim White gets credit.
So likely one of them went into the cave first.
Right. That's crazy. But since 1924, the park has had over 44 million visitors, which is kind of crazy.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And, I have to say, I've always heard of Carlsbad Caverns. I hadn't been there, but I'd always known of it. So
it's amazing to me that it's had that many visitors given its location. Like it's way away from everything.
Yeah, you have to try really hard to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to make an effort. Some of the early visitors entered the cavern through an old mining bucket. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Be like, you want to go check it out? Let's go.
Well, and it was an old
early
guano.
visitors of the park, right? Isn't that intended like the park?
And it was an old guano mining bucket.
What does that mean?
Guano is bat poo.
Ew, really?
Yes.
Wow.
So they went down a bat poo bucket.
Wow. That's so much more interesting when you say it. Then in September of 1928, you guys might know this person, Amelia Earhart. She visited the caverns. In 1931, they had an elevator installed. I cannot imagine visiting before that elevator was installed.
You get in the poo bucket.
Apparently. And then years later in 1995, it became a World Heritage Site. I point that out because we love our UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And it is home to actually multiple different caves, which I did not know. I assumed it was all one big cave. And it's also home to the 400,000 bats that create that poo. So, and then fun fact, at a certain time of the year, there are bats that the bats start migrating and they come flying out of the caverns together. And so it's a pretty big deal to get to witness that. And we did not time that out right, but you can.
Yeah, we didn't actually get to see that. We had to get back to Maggie before the flying of the bats came out. But it would be a really cool thing to see. So if you're going for multiple days, I would definitely put that on my list. Was it that time of
year? Like, was it happening that time of year?
I remember people in the gift shop that were like, well, now what are we going to do? Because I had to wait for like 4 hours before
fascinating.
Before it all started. But
I don't remember that.
Yeah. We had made our way from Marfa.
Mm-hmm.
Thrilling time at Marfa, Texas. If you want to go back and listen to the last episode, you can find out more about that. But we stayed at White City RV Park and Campground. We stayed there for 3 nights, and it's right outside the park.
Yeah.
But when we came into the park, there was a massive herd of bighorn sheep. Just tons of them.
It was crazy.
Yeah, we've got some footage, so go out and watch the YouTube video.
Yeah.
We can show you some footage of it. I couldn't believe that there were that many all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
100, 200?
Yeah, something like that.
There were a bunch.
Well, and we didn't even know how many at first because some of them were already on the side of the road and they blended in so well with some of the landscape that we kept seeing what was in front of us. And then after a minute, I realized, oh my gosh, they're all around us. This is crazy. We didn't even recognize how many there were originally.
Yeah. And we'd stop driving. And so they're crossing the road and we're basically right in the center of this massive herd of bighorn sheep.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. And then somebody came along with like, that was in a national park and apparently on a very strict time schedule and came like driving past us, around us, and like drove all the sheep off the road and away basically.
Yeah. That was like, it was such a not cool thing to do.
If you're going to a national park, like, stuff takes time.
And the whole point is to see the nature
like
and the
you're
wildlife.
there to see what's in the park.
Yeah.
And so drive slow.
Yeah.
Enjoy your time in the park. Yes, the roads are long. The speed limits are low. Like, but you're there to enjoy the park. Go to enjoy the park. Like, you're not on your way to some big meeting.
Yeah.
You're in a national park. Just chill out a little bit.
That was so funny. But, you know, maybe they were like us. Maybe they had tickets to a self-guided tour.
That's true. That's true. But somehow.
Get it? A self-guided tour?
Yeah.
They just had to race in for their self-guided tour.
Get there just in time to take themselves into the cave.
Yeah. We did a early morning tour that was self-guided, and we wanted to do one of the ranger-led tours, but FYI, guys, they can get sold out. So good to know. And, you know, that's the tickets they had. I bet you anything. They had tickets with the Rangers.
The Ranger guided tour.
You know, I think it would be more fun with the Rangers, though, and I'd feel a little safer because it was a little creepy.
It was really creepy after a while. Like, after a while of being down in there, the cave is just so big and so vast that you just kind of get this feeling of like, this could go on forever, and I'm not sure I know my way back out.
Yeah.
It's just very disorienting being in that dark, that quiet. There's no wind. There's no real point of reference at all. Like, it all looks the same every direction around you. So there's nothing to indicate you're going the right way.
Yeah.
And it's pretty creepy, really.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, like, water's dripping. And so you're like slipping a little bit on some of these like sidewalks that they create for you and stuff. I was literally holding onto the rails.
I remember that too. I remember I wore my hiking boots because I just don't have a lot of other options when we were traveling in the RV. Like, you just only can pack so many pairs of shoes. But I was so glad that I did because I had the grip. I can't imagine if I'd come in there and just like tennis shoes or something. Like, it would have been impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then, it just kind of rattled me a little bit to be down there after, like you said, after a while. Like, at first it was very exciting. And then after a while, you're kind of like, I don't know. Like, can you imagine being in a cave like that during an earthquake?
No.
How scary that would be.
No.
Yeah, I think that'd be super, super scary. And then what if the electricity goes out? That would be maybe scarier.
I mean, it's so big, and we had gotten so far into it that I remember thinking, if the electricity went out, does the flashlight that I have in my bag and my phone have enough to actually get us out of here?
You thought about that?
Yeah, I remember thinking that when I was down there.
I'm glad you thought about that. I didn't think about that. But, you know, again, I think we might have had a different experience though with the Ranger-led tour.
That's true. I'm sure we would have learned a lot more than what we could pick up from little signs and things like that. And you know, all of that kind of stuff I do feel like is helpful and informative. And I've never done one of those ranger guided things and not been like, oh, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They always kind of pay off.
Yeah, they always pay off. That's a really good point. The other really interesting thing is that, like, you don't see rangers anywhere. So I'm also like, who would be leading that tour? Because we saw there was an intersection. There was one major intersection within the cave, and we saw a ranger there, ready to answer any questions people had. And it felt very reassuring. I was like, wow, it's so nice they have you here. And then there was a ranger manning the elevator at the deeper end of the cave. Like, so once you get done, you can take the elevator back up.
Right.
And he was there.
Because you hike down in through like the natural entrance and then like the elevator back to leave.
Which I have to say, the entrance to this, guys, is really cool. Like, you want a good Instagram moment, just go to the entrance. You don't even have to go inside. It just looks really cool. It's this huge gaping hole in the earth. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And there is other stuff outside of just like the cave itself. There are little hikes that you can do inside the park and like a little drive around the park. In fact, there's one story, I think maybe the most interesting story that I heard from Carlsbad didn't take place in the caves at all.
Okay.
And it involved people getting lost. So 2 hikers, David Coffin and Rafi Kodakan, I think it's how you say his last name. They were from Boston.
Okay.
And they wanted to go on an adventure, decided to hike together, and they were hiking in Carlsbad National Park outside the cave, just on one of the trails. And they got lost, got dehydrated, went crazy. And Rafi ends up...
Went crazy? No, say that. Like, what do you mean they went crazy?
Well, they got dehydrated and sort of lost their minds a little bit.
Oh, got it.
And Rafi ended up killing David.
Why?
With a pocket knife.
Why?
Like a 4-inch pocket knife. And when he was questioned about it, he said that it was a mercy killing, that David had asked him to kill him. Like David was like, Rafi, I need you to kill me. Like, I'm too weak. I'm not going to survive. I don't want to suffer anymore. I need you to kill me.
Just kill me now.
And they made like a suicide pact, and Rafi was going to kill himself afterward, but then decided not to.
Those suicide pacts never work.
No. And just such a, like, I don't know. It's such a crazy story because Rafi ends up getting convicted of 2nd-degree murder.
Wow.
And serving like 16 months. But they couldn't really figure out, like, they questioned all their friends, and these guys have been buddies for a long time. They'd never had an argument. Like they didn't fight at all. So everyone was like, no, there's no way one would hurt the other one intentionally. And so all of their friends kind of believed them that David had asked to be killed. But after they recovered David's body, they find that he's like dehydrated, but like moderately to severely dehydrated. They'd been out there for only a couple of days. And they said that like he was probably more sick from, they tried to eat some cactus, and they were probably more sick from that than anything else. And after Rafi killed him, he like buried him with stones, and like a lot of stones, some big stones that weighed up to like 70 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, if you're so dehydrated and so near death, how are you able to like move all these stones?
But did you say they're from Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're from Boston. And the crazy thing is,
they were really just scared of the heat. They didn't realize how bad it.
Maybe so. Maybe like the heat just got to them and was just so crazy for them. They thought it was worse than it was. And like the most bizarre thing I think of the whole story is their campsite where they were found was 240 feet from the trailhead.
No.
Where there's like signage pointing you in every direction which way to go, and less than a mile from the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
So they're so close.
250 feet from directions?
Yes. From the trailhead with a bunch of signs. And I mean, it's just such a crazy story.
Yeah.
And such a reminder of like, when you're not used to doing stuff, like you need to be prepared and take plenty of water with you, know where you're going.
Yeah.
Like take those precautions, because bad stuff can happen, but just such a wild, crazy thing to happen and not even involve the cave.
Yeah. Right. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Was it on top of one of the caves, you bet? You think? You bet?
I'm sure there's caves under where they were, but yeah.
That's crazy. But somebody found them. He didn't find his way out.
Yeah, someone found them.
Someone found them.
Yeah.
Which means that he kind of just gave up and was there.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So bizarre.
That's really crazy. I wonder, did one of them write a book? That would be interesting to like.
I know one of them didn't.
Oh, Jamin. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you can leave that in here. We are making this too. We're in a really good mood, guys. That might be a little too lighthearted. But that was also my fault. Because no matter which way you go, that is a really hard scenario for the guy that lived too, and then the family of the guy that was killed.
Yeah.
And then like, how do you reconcile that? How do you go like, I believe you, I don't believe you, I don't know. But everybody had different feelings.
So hard.
Yeah.
So hard to battle with that forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow, that's a good story. That's a great story. Well, okay. Let's talk about our accommodations, because whenever people go to Carlsbad Caverns, it is in the middle of nowhere.
It is.
As this season conveys. And there's literally we tried to find the place closest to, because the only reason we were out there is strictly for the national park. So we were like, let's find the place closest to the national park. And it was, but it was a little rough. It's convenient and quiet.
Yes.
But a little rough.
Yeah, it was very quiet. But not a lot of bells and whistles. The bathhouse, while not outside like Marfa was not much better.
It was pretty bad. Actually, the one in Marfa, the outside bathroom and the outside shower in Marfa was definitely cleaner.
For sure. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Crazy to be able to say that. Yeah, I remember, but I did appreciate the solitude, and we didn't really see anybody at all, which was nice, but it was so far out in the middle of nowhere that if we had seen somebody, it would have been creepy.
Right.
You know?
It was so isolated that you either need to see no one or like 20 people, but seeing like 3 people would have been the hills have eyes kind of scenario.
Exactly. Except there was this little tourist spot nearby where there was like a laundromat, walkable. Yeah. There's like a laundromat and like a shop with like Native American trinkets and stuff. And that's about it.
Yeah. Not a lot to choose from.
Yeah. You could buy like rocks and stuff.
Well, I remember I had to drive quite a way into Carlsbad, the city, just to get the oil changed.
That's right. And but I had the nicest day while you were gone.
I'm glad you got to enjoy it.
I really did. Like Maggie and I stayed back and we opened all the windows and let the breeze go through the whole place. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, it can be really pretty out somewhere with mountains and desert and no trees or anything, and it can still be really beautiful. And I remember we still didn't have a TV, so I was reading madly everywhere we went, and I was reading the story of the Von Trapp family singers by Maria Von Trapp, and it was so good. I had purchased it a while back when we were in Stowe, Vermont. So if you want to go back and listen to the Vermont episode, you can hear about how I got to meet somebody from the Von Trapp family, which was a really big deal. And I cried when we were at the Von Trapp family lodge. But it was amazing. And I did a whole lot of crying reading the book. It was so good. And so much of their life. I mean, I was shocked by all the drama that they lived through that took place after the movie ends. You think of The Sound of Music. Sorry, guys, this is about The Sound of Music. If you don't know who the Von Trapp family is, I'm so sorry. They are featured in The Sound of Music. And in The Sound of Music, the movie ends, but in real life, their lives continued to be so dramatic, and they conquered so much moving to America and trying to make a way to live for this huge family that couldn't speak English. I mean, it's incredible what they were capable of, and it's such an extraordinary story. And then at some point, I remember doing yoga outside with this little puppy, and it was so incredible, except for all the grass spurs everywhere. It was really great. I felt really bad for Maggie afterwards. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. But, yeah. It's what it's like being out in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, New Mexico.
It was definitely out in the middle of nowhere. And, we were there 3 nights. Mm-hmm. And then headed on our way out to another deserty place. But when we did, we actually hit 100 YouTube subscribers.
We did. I remember that day. That was exciting.
Our little YouTube venture was starting to get some people watching.
Get some traction.
Which was fun.
Yeah.
It was a really big deal for us. So we kind of celebrated that a little bit. Drove through El Paso. And Hilarie had to play the Marty Robbins song El Paso 10 times.
If you're ever driving through El Paso, you have to look up on Spotify or somewhere, Apple Music, look up El Paso by Marty Robbins and play it while you're driving through. I do this religiously every single time I drive through, and I love it. And then I always text my dad and I tell him I'm in El Paso listening to El Paso, because he turned us on to Marty Robbins when we were little kids, and the stories that are told in his songs are just fun, and he just makes for interesting songs, interesting little lyrics and story writer.
It is a very catchy song, and if you hear it, you'll forever hear it in your head.
Yeah, every time you hear the word El Paso, the name El Paso, you'll be like do 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 do. Next up is Phoenix, Arizona, which one of the cities that I really like.
Yes.
I really like Phoenix.
It is in the middle of nowhere in that it's on its own, but Phoenix is massive, huge, fun city. Definitely recommend Phoenix.
Yeah. There's like hiking all around the city. And then like in the middle of the city, there's a mountain you can hike up.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And then, obviously Scottsdale, and there's some great places everywhere you can enjoy. But then also Frank Lloyd Wright, Taliesin West. Is Frank Lloyd Wright, one of his homes, he's a great architect, and one of his homes is there on one of the mountains outside town. And we went and toured that, and that was like really pretty cool.
It was really interesting.
Like it'd be really cool to have one of his homes. They're just, it's made so smartly. We'll tell you all about it in the next podcast, guys.
Well, make sure that you are subscribed from where you watch or listen to come along with us. And also check us out on social media. We've got Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then our YouTube channel as well, where our companion video is. We got some footage from inside the caves at Carlsbad Caverns, and so you'll get to kind of see that if you go check that out.
That's right. And you can also send us an email, drop us a line at travelfomopodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can reach us.
Love to hear from you.
That's right. Life is short, guys.
Wander well.